What's going on? It's your man, Mr. Justin, and this is the Dominance Academy. Boy, this clubhouse shit is something else. But today's episode is about bitchy women. And it was inspired by yet another clubhouse, yet another clubhouse thread, I guess, because they've changed their whole structure from rooms with topics to people can create threads, much like you can create a thread on Facebook and people can respond, but they do it with voice notes. It's very interesting. So it's a little bit difficult to have a back and forth. But anyways, so this one guy he started a question, and he said, "Are women bitches?" And of course, he was at the time experiencing something that threw him for a loop. And I guess he was seeing this girl, and she was all sweet and nice, and she was all sweet and nice, and then all of a sudden, apparently, out of the blue, she was bitchy. She became very bitchy, and he failed to understand that people don't just wake up one day and decide to be a certain way. They don't decide to be assholes. They don't decide to be bitches. They don't decide. Maybe you wake up and maybe you're just in a bad mood, but it's for a behavior switch that's that drastic. It's not a decision, it's a reaction. And that's what this guy is having a terrible time dealing with. He's having an awful time understanding that women are responsive. And and are women bitches? Yeah, they all have the capacity for bitchiness. Maybe certain women of various parts of the world. I'm sure guys would say that women in the West are more prone to being bitches, and say women of the Middle East or Asia or the Far East or Southeast Asia, they're less inclined, or maybe Eastern Europe, they're less inclined to be bitchy. But I'll tell you what, every woman has their threshold. Every woman has their threshold and makes them snap, and then they become bitchy. And and this guy, he was having difficulty understanding that men don't experience bitchy women. We just don't. It doesn't exist in our sphere. And the reason being is that we have a very strong barrier for it. Not only that, we have a good influence system. So there's multiple things happening at the same time. So on one end, there is a strong filter. And that filter, what I refer to as the hatchet, this prevents undesirable behavior from continuing. And what that means is the behavior or words are checked immediately. And the thing is, though, is that you cannot check a woman's behavior if you are afraid of losing her. If you have any fear whatsoever when it comes to losing the access that you have to a woman, then it's going to alter your behavior. And you're not going to check her because if you're afraid that if you check her too hard, that she's going to lose interest. She's going to run away. Men don't give a flying fuck if she runs away. Not only that, we know that 9 times out of 10, they always come back. So you can't um you can't have that fear. You can't have a drop of this fear. And because, if you do, it will taint your behavior. It will taint your ability to stand on your square with 10 toes down and your heels rooted into the ground. It will be impossible because there's that one little drop of fear of loss. This will cause the man to erode his square. And it's really just something that has to be developed. It comes from self inquiry about, because like I've been asked, how do you let go of that fear? How do you not have that fear? And it comes from understanding why you have the fear in the first place. Why are you afraid if a woman walks away? Well, because I invested so much. What did you invest? Your money? No, that you didn't. You used your money with her, but you didn't invest in her. It's not like it's going to come back with percentages of growth. So, what is it? What they're really referring to when they say I've invested is that they have made emotional attachments to her. That's what it is. They've made emotional attachments to a woman. And now they think that they are owed something, or they deserve to keep her, or they're afraid of losing her. And this is what happens when you invest the way they're investing and you're expecting some kind of return, because it's not coming from a place. See, when you invest in something, you're taking some sort of potential energy or an asset of some kind, and you put it into another system with the intention of having it grow and come back to you with returns. That's not how these guys are approaching it. They're not coming at it with a growth mindset. They're not coming at it with, how can I make this grow? They're just putting in and hoping that it doesn't get worse. They're putting in and hoping that it stays safe. And you can't really go about things that way. That's risk aversion. And men, we often take risks, and getting involved with a woman, honestly, shouldn't be a risk at all. There's nothing to be lost. The guys who think that there's something to be lost, they're talking about their feelings. That's really all they're talking about. It's just their emotions. And last I checked, there hasn't been any sort of situation where your emotions are the most useful strategy towards a goal or attaining something or manifesting something in your life. I really don't see how that's possible. Okay. Just checking my shit. So, um, so this guy, I'm trying to explain to him, why he's having these problems, with this one particular girl. And he's like, yeah, I've got no problems with women. Like, why do guys have to lie so much? Why do you guys have to fucking lie about your sexual frequency or the frequency or amount of women that you're with? Do you realize that lying to yourself and lying to other people does not make that thing that you're talking about real? It doesn't make it real. You're only fooling yourself. You're only lying. You're lying to yourself and you're lying to other people. And it's not going to get you any closer to what you actually want. In fact, it's going to take you further away. So, because this is the thing. One of two things happens. You're bullshitting and you do nothing. You take no action. Or you're bullshitting. Other people believe you're bullshit. They take you up on it and they find out that you're fake. And that sets you back. If you're smart enough to realize that you can grow from it, but more often than not, like this dude, you're going to blame women. You're going to say, "Oh, they were mean to me. They were bitches." And it's like, "No, they were just responding to you." I remember, um, as I've mentioned, I'm a professional illustrator, and I heard about this girl who wanted to get into video game pre-production, and it's a particular field called concept art or conceptual art. And what this person is on the team is they work with the writers and the director for the games, and they spitball ideas and they start talking about different things. And it's the concept artist's job to very quickly create art to put an image to what the art director and the writers are talking about. And then these get refined and then they get passed off to the game artists, the character artists, environment artists, prop artists, so on. And so you need a portfolio. You need like a really good portfolio to get a job as a concept artist because, um, well, the competition is steep and you need to have the skills and the speed to get things done. And so this girl, young lady, she starts a portfolio. She creates a portfolio of stolen artwork. And because it's all digital, no one does like analog concept art anymore. And so she steals a bunch of JPEGs from I don't know where and puts together a portfolio. And she was smart enough to make it look cohesive in terms of styling. And she convinced a game developer to hire her. And I would love to have known what was going through her head when she actually got the job. And so she gets the job. She shows up on site. Project starts coming around. And I don't know what she did, but eventually they found out who she was. They found out that she had duped them and played them for fools. Now, I don't know what she was thinking. Like, I mean, obviously, eventually she would be found out. Like, maybe she thought she could hack it. Like, maybe she thought like her actual skills were good enough to do the job. And then she quickly realized that they weren't. And then she was discovered and she was fired immediately. You guys who are wanting to be gamed up, wanting to be that guy, wanting to be influential on women. And this is, you know, so I'm just thinking about that dude, like the shit that he just doesn't understand. You're taking yourself further away. You're taking yourself further away from who you can be by posturing of being someone that you wish you were. You're taking yourself away every single day you do it. And the the thing is that if you humbled yourself and you were honest with yourself and you said, "You know what? I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I stand for, what I stand on. I don't have a program. Uh, I have no clue about women, but I want to have a clue. I want to have a clue about myself. I want to know about myself. I want to be a strong, influential man. How do I do that?" Those are good questions to ask. But if you're telling yourself that you already know these things, then how are you ever going to grow? And this occurs in so many places, like not just in game or art or whatever, but there's tons of people out there who, in sports, that's all over the place. But in basically any field, there's going to be somebody who says that they're better than they actually are because they want to feel that. They want to feel, and I don't blame you guys. Like, you want to feel successful, you want to feel respected, you want to feel like the man. And that's totally fine. But understand you have to create it, and it starts with having a strong connection with yourself. And the strong connection begins with honesty. And I don't mean honesty in the sense of bashing yourself, because that I've mentioned this before. When you bash yourself, that's yet another deviation, because then that leads you away from truth down the path of poor me. And yeah, I'll tell you another story. I've mentioned this, a number of times, but there was a period in my life where I taught illustration, and part of teaching, at least when it comes to art, is looking at masters, and you watch and observe master works to see, and you analyze them to see how they came about creating the images that they did, and understand why it affects the viewer the way it does. So I would show them a bunch of masterworks, and it was just a collection of things from current day to contemporary stuff, going back in time all the way to the Renaissance. And they would look at this stuff, and of course I chose some of the most amazing paintings ever done. And at first it was wow, and they had just a very excited feeling. Then following right behind that was self-doubt, self-rejection, self-hate. Things like, I could never do that, or I should give up now, that sort of stuff. And this is a very common reaction when faced with greatness in something that you yourself are working towards. Really common. So the thing is that when you're going down that path of, I don't believe in myself, I suck, I'll never be that good, I should give up now. When you go down that road, riding that boat or whatever, it takes you away from having the ability to say how. To say, how did they do this? How did they construct that image? What principles did they use of form, lighting, shadow, and so on? How are they able to do this? And not only that, why does it affect the viewer the way it does? And that's the same sort of thing when it comes to game. That's the same sort of thing. So what happens is the guys will you'll get honest with yourself and say, you know what? I suck. I don't know what I'm doing. I have more questions than I have answers. And then the initial thing will happen is they'll start feeling bad about themselves. And they'll say, "Oh, I'll never be good enough. I'll never be able to, grow. I'll never be able to talk to women. I'll never be able to do this, that, and the other." And that prevents you from growing. That prevents you from asking how and why, because you have to put on like an engineer hat when you're trying to sort yourself out, when you're trying to sort out your interactions with women. This is how you have to think. You have to be objective. You can't let your feelings get in there. Just like the illustration students, their feelings would get in the way of learning. Learning is an emotionless process. It's not necessary. It doesn't make it better or worse. Like, well, it can make it worse, but it won't make it better. So it's acknowledgement that you don't know what you're doing, maybe looking at someone who's masterful and going, wow, that's fucking cool. And skipping over the part where you bash yourself for not being able to match up to that master. And then put on your engineer hat or your engineer glasses and look and say, okay, what are they doing? How are they able to think the way they think, to do the things they do? And let me see if I can sort it out and then try to break it down. Or maybe I can find out who they are and maybe they can help me. Or I can find a teacher who can help me understand the master. And this is a much more productive method of going about learning than, you know, trying to be that thing and that, like the whole fake it till you make it bullshit. Like that could work for certain like physical things, but when it comes to game, faking it will drive you further and further away from the truth. And you'll never get to where you actually want to be because it starts with being honest. It starts with recognizing that you don't know what you're doing. and then seeking out someone who does know what they're doing and saying, "Hey, can you help me? I don't understand." And it's that simple. So I'm trying to explain this shit to this guy, and he, instead of trying to understand what I'm saying, he then starts um looking for loopholes, or not loopholes, but looking for contradictions in the things that I'm saying. And he didn't understand that this the idea of, when you have a program and you're grounded, you rarely see bitchiness as a man. You see a tiny little smidgen. It just crops up just a little bit. And at that moment, if it's, say, like a new interaction, say it's like a, girl you met on the street, you're out, or you met a girl online or a dating app, and you go out and you catch a glimpse of her bitchiness. Right at that moment, the only thing that you have is your axe, and you axe the situation, and then you never see that person again. That's it, because they've displayed themselves as not being worthy of your time and your attention. And that's it. It's that simple. And it's nothing emotional. It's not like you offended me or anything like that, because it's very principle based. So, one of, for example, one of my principles is to have right speech. Okay. I borrowed this from the Buddhist Eightfold Path. I have a long history of studying Buddhism. So it just, it's always been with me. It's very rare that I swear. I'm not a rude person. I'm not cantankerous. Uh, you know, I assert myself only when necessary, and it's I believe in courtesy and having class. So because I hold this for myself, this is something that I can hold for the people that I bring into my circle. So the moment that I see that someone is not like that, I don't want them around me. I don't want low class people around me, or people that I deem as low class. So if they're being rude or whatever, I'm just like, no, you're done. You're not worth my attention. You're not worth my curiosity. So um, the thing is, though, is that it gets a little bit trickier when you're involved. So let's say you start seeing this girl, and this was his situation. Start seeing this girl, and you're going on dates, you're hooking up, you're fucking. It's been going on for a few weeks, and then she gets bitchy out of the blue. Maybe a couple of months, she gets bitchy out of the blue. It's at that point you can use the axe if you want to. I mean, it's entirely up to you. Or you can, or because of other measures that you've been observing the entire time, because you're looking for markers, you're looking for certain levels of obedience. Like, is she campaigning to be on your program? And during that time, you're revealing to her in little bits that are, bite sized, of how, or what your program is and how she can get on it. And so let's say she becomes a little bit bitchy at this time. It's at that point when you have a choice of, you can axe her if you want to, or you can pull out the hatchet and the compass, and you check the behavior immediately, and you let her know that what she's doing, what she's saying, is prohibited, that it's not allowed in your presence. She can do that, like she's a fully autonomous being, but she's not going to do it here. She can do that over there, or way over there, or way back there, but not here. And then, if she has proven herself worthy of your correction, okay, which is the compass, all right, then you can instruct her on what is acceptable, what is permissible behavior or words. And you tell her exactly, no, this is not permissible behavior. These are not permissible words. what is acceptable is, and you spell it out for her verbatim of what you expect her to say. And if she respects you, if she likes you, if she's turned on by you, if she views you as something as valuable to her, she's going to want to follow that. If she doesn't find you valuable, meaning she has no fear of loss, okay? I was mentioning that before, the fear of loss. If she doesn't have a fear of loss, meaning she does not see you as something valuable, because valuable things we want to hold on to. If she sees you as disposable, she's not going to care about your correction. And at that point, it's clear to you that you can use the axe. It's really simple. It's really, really simple. All you have to do is have no fear. And if you have fear, take the time to ask questions as to why. Okay. But are women bitches? Yeah, to average males. Like they'll have enough information to like sit around and talk about it. Why? Because they permit it. They accept it. They allow that sort of behavior to be in their life. So they have a lot of experiences to share with other guys or women about how the women are in their life, about how bitchy they can be. I haven't experienced bitchy behavior from women in a very long time. And I don't know how to express other than what I already have to this guy, and to you guys, because the process is it's so simple. It's so incredibly simple. And it like all it takes is just facing your fear. That's it. And knowing what you want. So you should have a vision of what you desire before you get into interacting with people. So you have an idea of like what to measure against. Because if you don't, then you're going to be using your feelings as your measuring stick. And you say, the way she spoke or the way she behaved made me feel a certain way. And that's not a an effective method of going about enforcing certain rules. That's how we get into trouble, because you have the power to enforce the rules, but it's fueled by your emotions. Really bad things can happen. That's when like women get punched and shit like that, because they're trying to enforce a rule or a boundary, but there's heated emotions behind it. And that's no good. No bueno. All right. So you should understand your rules and why you have them from a more strategic principle based level, and understand that your emotions have nothing to do with it. There's nothing to do with your emotions when it comes to that sort of stuff. So so these guys, yes, they're correct. Yeah, women are bitches. They're bitches to them. And that's something that it's an interesting thing, because it's like he was trying to explain to me that he had a program, and the things that I was saying, he already knew about. And I was talking like I was as if I was talking down to him. And I could understand how he perceived that. Um, because when you're around somebody who knows shit and you're trying to pretend that you know shit, and they know that you don't know, and they expose that you don't know a little bit, it hurts. It's not a good feeling. It was. Hi, Superior White Master, please show your socks, please. Um, no, but I appreciate the request. So, guys who are, experiencing bitchy women, yes, of course, uh, they've got a lot to go on. They have a lot of experiences because they sit around for it. And they sit around for it because they're really hungry. They're really hungry for this sort of stuff. They're really hungry for the attention of women. They're really hungry for their sex. They're really hungry for validation. They're hungry. And I know I keep going on and on about this, but that's because within development of yourself development of game, and things of that nature. You are the common denominator. And these are the very common things within that denominator that have like fear and self-hatred are basically the things that are holding back so many guys. And then those fears and so on, they create attachments. And those attachments are used to sort of like counteract the negative feelings of knowing that you dislike yourself. And so that's where these addictions come from. But you'll never it was. Boy, you're an interesting person. I I'm just gonna pause here for a second and read this comment. I want to be owned and dominated and used and dogged out and get some good stanky socks. Please master and command me to worship and serve the stanky dress socks on my face and record me on me. Well, all right. I mean, feet are not my thing, but I do know a guy who's like way into feet. Um, he goes by Coach Brody, and he's got a foot fetish. So the two of you might have something in common. I never got that. Like, so feet are a very interesting thing. There are people in the world. Like, I was seeing this girl from Canada, and she had this thing about feet. It blew my mind. She didn't want to see them. Like, to her, she would just be better off like ignoring feet. She would rather they not even exist. And she didn't want to see pictures. She didn't want to talk about feet. Um, she she didn't want to even acknowledge their existence. And if you touched her with your feet, she would flip the fuck out. And I'm like, that's so bizarre. Like, how are people that weirded out about certain things? And it wasn't like a phobia. It was just like an extreme distaste for feet. It was bizarre. And then we have people, like it was here, who absolutely love, well, like in this case, it's socks. I don't know if you've got a foot thing, but maybe it's just socks. Um, and they're like way, way into them. They're really, really into feet. And I just don't get that either. Like, it's just a foot. Like, what the hell? Like, to me, that's like the same as an elbow. Like, it's just a thing. So I don't understand like how fetishes even like get born, because I don't have a fetish. I'm kinky, but I don't have a fetish. Maybe I should do a show about that, because a lot of people confuse those sort of things. They confuse kink and fetish. Oh, I see your comment here. It was his name is Coach Brody, Brodie. I think that's his YouTube handle. Um, Really smart guy. Really, really smart guy. He's into BDSM as well. And he's very nerdy about the whole thing. But yeah, really, really well spoken and smart dude. And yeah, he's got a foot fetish. So maybe he would entertain sending you socks. I don't know. But I don't shame people's kinks unless it involves children or animals. If it doesn't involve children or animals, I could care less. No big deal to me. But yeah, socks. But what did you say here? Oh yeah, and please don't call me master. That is a title that is earned. And you have not earned that privilege of calling me master. Um, that only belongs to someone who actually belongs to me. But you said here, I love to see a dominant master like you are in the stanky socks and command me to worship and serve and submit and be owned and roasted and used for a willing and obedient and side socks slave. Okay. Well, if that's your thing, that's your thing, but I can't really help you out. But all the blessings to you in finding a dominant who's just as much into socks as you are. Instant classic. Thank you for stopping through. You say here, I think most men walk around with an inferiority complex. They fundamentally flawed at their core and use women to validate their diminished self-worth. This was definitely the truth for me. Yeah, and the next question is to understand why you got to that place, like why you became in that state of diminished self-worth in the first place. Um, I'm sure it had something to do with childhood experiences, perhaps trauma. Um, and to be fair, there's a lot of people in the BDSM world that have trauma. There's like some really, really messed up people. I mean, there's really messed up people in the vanilla world too. But what I found really interesting is that if it's a healthy communication, if it's a healthy dynamic, it can actually act as therapy. It can act as really, really effective therapy. I've seen quite a bit of healing through people who are in DS dynamics, um, and not even in relationships. Like they just have like a dominant slave relationship or a dominant, master slave relationship or a dominant submissive relationship, and it's akin to seeing a massage therapist or a psychotherapist, and it's not like they're sitting there talking about their problems, but a relationship of sorts does get developed, and things around their traumas, things around fear, things around worthlessness and so on get worked through. It's a really, really interesting, and some psychology papers have been written about it. Some therapists have written books about these things, and it's gotten to the point where a number of therapists are actually suggesting to certain patients that they get into BDSM as a means of healing, and which I find really interesting as well. Because like let's say someone has sort of like exposure therapy. Okay, so I don't know if you're familiar with exposure therapy, where say somebody has a fear of mice, and so they first start off with just talking about mice, and you let the person be okay with talking about mice. Then you show them a picture of a mouse, and then they get used to that, and then you have them watch a video of a mouse running around, and you have them get used to that. Then you bring an actual mouse into the room in a cage, but the cage is across the room. And then the next session, you like have the cage there and you bring it a little closer and a little closer, a little closer. And next thing you know, the cage is sitting right next to the patient who's afraid of mice. And eventually, it's taking the mouse out of the cage and allowing the person to hold the mouse. And this is to kind of expose them to their fears and work through those situations and the feelings and their, everything is connected to that. And this is what I've seen um in the BDSM world as well, where say someone has you know, like a fear of being trapped. Maybe say like one of the parents abused them and would lock them in a small closet or a little space underneath the stairs, like Harry Potter or some shit like that. And it created some trauma. And so for them to work through their trauma is to work with a dominant whom they trust. And the dominant puts them in a cage, like a dog kennel cage, and so that they are confined. And that's my cat going wild again. But and through this, they have a sort of cathartic release of like sort of like the mouse sort of thing, where they're sort of reliving the experiences and they're able to push through them and center themselves once again through or while the act is happening. So it's no longer this scared child who is just reacting and developing these fears and anxieties and traumas. They're now grown adults and they're able to have this like a similar experience and a similar physical and emotional experience, but then their adult mind is there to kind of center them with the dom's help, perhaps depending on how they're talking to them, and can center who's experiencing. It's no longer a child. And so now it can be processed in a completely different manner. And I've seen this in numerous ways throughout the BDSM community. And it's really interesting. I mean, there's like, you know, young women who've had say we'll call it you know, forced non-consensual sex. And the and then later on, they say they find themselves in BDSM, and they'll have a trusted partner in which they will express the same sort of thing through CNC, which is consensual non-consent. And through that, they will have a release. They will have a, like, I'm no longer the scared child or scared young girl. I'm now an adult, and I'm consenting to this sort of thing. And people who don't understand might say, like, well, that's sick, that's fucked up. But I can tell you that it's proven enough to have its effectiveness to the point where now many psychotherapists are um, encouraging their patients to get involved in DS, which is really, really cool. Boy, this it was person is really wild. Thank you, sir. And do you like to roast, smut, control, and dominate? You ever got into humiliation and verbal and racial abuse too, if they like it? That's a good question. Um, yes, I have. I've never gotten into any sort of racial abuse, but I'm fine with. I don't know what roast, smut, control is. I have no idea. But humiliation and verbal abuse, yes. I don't call it verbal abuse. I call it degradation. And and that too is it's just really interesting. It's like I think I would have to like get my sub or another sub on the show and have them talk about what it's like what degradation feels like and why it feels good and doesn't make them feel like shit. Like they don't feel good because they're feeling like shit. They don't feel like shit. It's something that I can't explain because I've not experienced it from their end. I've only experienced it from my end. And I can tell you that there is just some element of release. There's some element of joy. There's some element of liberation that happens when um when brought through verbal or physical degradation. And I can't explain it. Like, so I think I'm just going to have to get a sub on here or a slave to talk about what their experience is like. I probably have to hide their identity or something like that, or they would just have to be on the show on audio only. But I think that would explain a lot because that's certainly something that I don't really know about either. Instant classic. Yeah, you're saying that's interesting. I've checked out FetLife and I'm very intrigued. At some point in my childhood, I developed the belief that my inner world couldn't be trusted and sought approval from the outer world. Yeah, that's part of the game, because um, that's what leads to uh, people being easily controlled. Like that's really what it comes down to. That it allows people to become easily controlled because that's how like gaslighting works. Okay? So gaslighting is when you have someone uh who has manipulative skills and is able to make someone question their reality or question their feelings, or question their understanding of themselves. Fucking hell. Excuse me a minute. See, now that little shit's gonna freeze outside, and that's what he wanted. So it's like I was saying, it's a bit like gaslighting, and um, let's see, my girl's probably getting ready to go to sleep or something. Nope. Okay. So, yeah, it's a bit like gaslighting where they'll instill doubt. And that's really what gaslighting does. It's a skillful means of developing doubt within another person, whether it's doubting a situation, doubting their own thinking, doubting their beliefs, doubting what happened at some period in the past. Like that's all gaslighting. So, the system, if we want to put on our tinfoil hats for just a second, the system wants men to be in a state of self doubt and questioning ourselves. Not in the way that I'm suggesting of questioning to gain an understanding. It's just questioning to have doubt. And because when you're in a place like that, you're not settled, you're not grounded, um you don't have a strong foothold underneath you, and therefore you're a bit rocky. And when someone's a bit rocky, you're easily pushed in one way or the other. You're more easily influenced. And and to be fair, like that's why when you are very grounded, you can have influence over other people. You can have influence over women because you know, largely people, men and women included, they're not grounded with themselves. They're very easily manipulated. So um, if you're someone who has this ability within yourself and you are, morally sound, that means you can affect people towards greater good. And that's what I'm aiming for with the men that I work with, is that I want them to be able to influence the people in their lives such that they are growing, that the people and the women especially that they are um, involved with, that they're putting the woman on a path toward self-betterment. And it's something that I picked up from a colleague of mine. He calls it the benevolent king. And it's not a king with an iron fist. It's a king who is looking for the best out of his people. And when you look at things that way, when you're looking for the best out of other people, it changes the way you move. It changes the way you think. It changes the way you perceive people. And it calls into question how you would do that. So it's fine to have that desire to say, hey, you know what? If there's a woman in my life, I want to bring out the best in her. I want to see her grow. The next question is, okay, well, how are you going to do that? So, like, that's like saying, okay, I want to be a prize fighter. And that's great. That's a great desire to have if that's what you want to do. But the next question is, okay, so how am I going to do that? How am I going to foster becoming a prize fighter? So, you want to be that influential guy. You want to watch a woman in your life grow even beyond levels that she even realized existed. Then you're going to have to ask yourself, well, how am I going to do this? What would be the process? And you have to take it seriously. Like, this is being a man, and being in a relationship is not for the faint of heart. It's not I mean, it's easy, but it's not easy. It's easy when you have a program, but it's not easy because it demands a certain amount of awareness and attention that you can't ever really let up on. And one of my guys, he experienced this recently. And I told him, I warned him. I was like, look, you're following what I'm saying. You've been consistent for the last few weeks. You're going to see a change in her. Don't let up. Don't take your foot off the gas pedal. You don't have to floor it anymore. Just keep it where it is. And he let up. He stopped to smell the roses. And essentially he became less consistent. And he became less consistent, and he he relished, or he reveled in his enjoyment. He stopped to enjoy the fruits of his labors. And that's one of those ironies. Again, the ironies of the game. When you stop to enjoy your fruits, it makes them rot. That's just the way that shit goes. I mean, you can take a whiff, but you can't stop, because he had, a lot of guys, too long of a history of relaxing. So that becomes like visiting an old friend, of laziness and relaxation. And those two guys are like, hey, he's back. Look who's come to kick back with us today. And then the next thing you know, your shit is getting fucked up because you're not maintaining. So you step onto the path of man. It's a path of maintenance, and not just maintenance, but maintenance and growth. And so it's like you can't ever really let up, because the second you let go, things will fall. So you're constantly having to keep this going, like spinning a basketball on your finger. Like, yeah, there's a moment where you can like stop spinning it and take a look and be like, oh, that's cool. But eventually you have to go back to spinning it, or it's going to slow down and fall off your finger. And it's like being in a relationship and being with women is that way. Like, you have to maintain certain things, because women are volatile beings. They're chaotic. They're full of variety. And that's just part of what a woman is, right? That's what makes them exciting. That's what makes them interesting. And and yeah, to the title, sometimes they can be bitchy. But again, it's like when you're a man, capital M, got a program, you know what you're doing, you're unfettered by anything that she does or says. You really don't get to see much of that. But what I'm saying is that guys want to be on the other side of the street. They want to um they want to be that guy. They want to be able to sit back with pride and be like, yeah, I'm that guy. I'm one of those guys. And that's a wonderful thing to want. But there, when you're there, it's like you don't realize how much you need to maintain and monitor and be mindful and clear about all of this stuff. And and that's just the way it goes. Like, you cannot be lazy. You can't. Like, and a lot of guys who don't understand this, they don't understand how pliable women are. It's kind of like, I like analogies too, but like oobleck. I don't know if I've ever played with oobleck, but it's a little like kid science thing, and it's about it's a Newtonian solid basically. So I think it's like equal parts um, flour and water, or baking soda and water, something like that. Um, but what you do is you put it in a bag and you mix it up. So it's like, 100% constituted together. And when it's in the bag, if you hold it and you squeeze it tight, it will get hard as a stone. Like, you cannot condense it because the cells get pushed together so tightly, it literally feels like a rock. If you relax your hand, it turns back into ooze. This shit's awesome. And it's like women are like that. Women are more like oobleck. They're not bitches. They're fucking oobleck. And depending on on how you're handling them, it will determine whether they are hard as a rock, or soft like jelly, or somewhere in between. And it's really up to you. It really is up to you how the things go. And because of the wildness of women, um it requires a lot of paying attention. And so these guys who have never really experienced that enough, they say to themselves, well, women need to have their own level of accountability. They need to um they need to hold themselves accountable. They're like, well, like this one guy that I was chatting with on Clubhouse, he was like, well, are they like, is the onus just completely on the guys? Like women have just no responsibility? And I would say no, they don't. They really don't. Because women are responders. They're responsive beings. And it's like you can't put responsibility on something that is reactive, because depending on the stimuli, the reactions will change. So how can you burden something that's so varied all the time with the burden of being accountable? Because how they're accountable is largely dependent, or the behaviors that happen that you're wanting them to be accountable for are dependent upon the outside stimuli. So it's like if they're acting poorly, that largely has something to do with who's involved, with who is um, influencing them at the time. And they can be a good influence or a bad influence. And that's really going to alter their behavior and their self-perception and a whole host of different things. And then, it's like the one who has that influence is the one who maintains the stimuli that goes into them, which alters their behavior, which you're holding accountable. So it really is up to the guy. It really is up to the man. But here's the thing. It sounds like it's a daunting task. And guys who don't have that experience, guys who um, you know, get into arguments with women, or, you know, they find themselves contentious with women, or I don't know, they don't have that seamless experience. They will look at this situation and go, well, why can't they think like us? Why can't they just hold themselves accountable? I mean, for Christ's sake, men do. Men look at the things they do when they fuck up. They say, "Hey, that's my fault. I was wrong. I'll do better next time." Like that's just what we do. We take ownership of our actions. We take ownership of our words. We take ownership of our thoughts, and or at least I hope you do. I mean, that's what you should be doing. But the thing is that they don't understand that, as simple as that may be, it's almost taking it for granted in thinking that women can do the same. And you sit there and go, but it's so easy. All you do is just say, that thing that I did wasn't right, and I'm gonna fix it, and I'm gonna own up to it. Like, they don't understand that women's minds, like, often don't work that way, and it requires someone from the outside to help manage. Now, I'm not saying all women are like this. There's plenty of women out there who have sorted this out for themselves, but I've not experienced that within my relationships. Like, I know some women that way, and it comes with actually a lot of masculine energy, if that's what you want to call it, where they're more assertive, they're more grounded, they're more just about themselves in a very objective and serious and straightforward manner, the way you'd expect a man to behave. They've got their gooiness under control, and and that's fine. And the guys who appreciate that sort of woman will be gravitated towards them, um, which is a whole other thing. I think guys who like aggressive women should be honest. They should be much more honest, and just be like, you know what, like this whole like macho, masculine dude, and the woman has to be submissive. That whole paradigm is not for me. I like aggressive women, and to the guys who feel that way, they should go after them. They should not. They should be honest with themselves. And that's what I was talking about at the very beginning, about self honesty and how important that is to getting to the point of being who you really need to be. And if you're honest and you say, you know what, I love bitchy women, I love aggressive, assertive women, then that's your bag. And don't be ashamed of it. Okay. And understand that there's people who are not going to get it. They're not going to understand. They're not going to agree. They'll call you names or whatever. Just like being in my position, you think that I don't hear any kind of backlash? Not that it matters to me, but I've been called an asshole. I've been called a jerk. I've been told that I'm too self centered. I've had people make fun of my girlfriends, not like directly to her, but like, boy, your girlfriend must be a real piece of work. I bet she has really low self-esteem. She has just as much low self-esteem as every other woman who's out there. They all have self-esteem issues. Hello, Telegram. I am not him. That's an interesting handle. But how's it going? Appreciate you stopping through. Um, but uh, but yeah, it's these guys, they just don't get it. Like, they want the prize at the end without understanding how, and they think that women can think the way they do, and it's not that simple. It really isn't. um that's not the yin yang balance of things. There's the stone and there's the sculptor, and that's just the way it goes. And now one is like better than the other. It's just that there's properties of one thing and there's properties of another thing, and when they interact properly, then you get really really cool shit. And that's just the way it works, and that is when polarity is working at its best, and that's when people are honest. So when, say, that guy that I was talking about, hypothetically, who is a little bit more submissive and he likes um, dominant women, and he's honest with himself, then he can be with a woman who's honest with herself. And like, there's tons of, like, with fucking moody ass men who are criticizing women who are comfortable being aggressive and assertive. um, they get shamed just as much as the guy who doesn't like to be aggressive and assertive. He gets shamed. And it's like, if you could just get with your own fucking truth and accept that and just not listen to the naysayers because you like who you are, you're comfortable in the skin that you're in, get with that person. Okay. And like, get with the proper puzzle piece that works for you. I've seen it a few times, not a lot, because it's not the majority, but I have seen some very successful marriages where the woman is, quote unquote, like wearing the pants, and the guy is not, but they're being really honest in their roles. They're both happy in their station. They wouldn't want it any other way. And it's very cohesive and things work out splendidly, but it has everything to do with their own honesty. So it's like, if you're a young guy and you're, watching all this YouTube shit and getting the influence from social media and so on, telling you, well, if you're this way, then you're not going to get any women. And if you're this way, you're going to get all the women. And it's like, it's not about that. It's not about um, getting the most, because it doesn't fucking matter. Like I said before, I would rather have 1 to 3 women who worship the ground that I walk on versus 300 women that I will never see again after a one night stand. But guys, they're like just so hungry for that stuff. They're hungry for the snacks that they would rather have that 300, because they don't realize that through honest living, you can get to that 1 to 3 that worship the ground you walk on. And even if the guy is the submissive, because when you're in a really healthy DS situation, I'm not saying that the Dom will worship the submissive, but they care for them in such a great degree that the sub might almost feel as though they're being worshipped. But it's coming just from a great sense of care and protection. And so, but again, that comes from just being honest, being really truthfully honest with yourself, and allowing that to be your guide. Okay, excuse me just a second. Okay. Just wish my girl a good night. Um, had a long ass trip from Hawaii, and super jet lagged and all fucked up, but trying to get back on the the sleeping thing. Yeah, man. It's one of the things I can't stand about travel is jet lag. But but yeah, so what I was saying is that a lot of this stuff, a lot of your problems, a lot of the the issues that you have, a lot of your perceptions and beliefs and things of that nature, a lot of it comes from having a dishonest relationship with yourself. And like I was saying before about the illustration students, it's getting past the poor me road. It's getting past the level of poor me and work past it, because it's like I was saying again, like guys will get honest with themselves and then immediately jump to shitting on themselves. And ah, got it. Got it. Okay. I see you, T. Um, I know this. I am not him. So there it is. Got it. Okay. So yeah, it's about the honesty. Because it's like in your honesty, that's where, you get to see where you're lying to yourself, where your bullshit lies, what's like moldy and rotting in the corner. Um, and you know, what's holding you back. Being honest is what allows you to question your conditioning. As it pertains to like the previous show about being a conditioned male. Being honest is what leads to liberation. Liberation from yourself. And here's the thing. Once you learn to liberate yourself from your own thinking, then you know how to liberate other people from their own thinking. And you become sort of like a little like mini messiah. And I don't mean that in you know, an overblown sense of self, that you're going to heal the world, but just in the sense that once you know how the mechanism works for self liberation, you can then teach it to other people. You can teach it to your siblings. You can teach it to your friends. You can teach it to your woman. And you know, with women, it's a very interesting thing because when you're acting as a liberator of their own suffering, which is their own mind, just as your suffering was your own mind, you couple that with actually giving a shit about their progress and who they're becoming and creating that container for them, all the while having fun working through, if you have a DS relationship with them, and that can get very psychologically and physically intense. You're talking about a connection that becomes so strong that it's very difficult to break that bond. Very, very difficult to break that bond because you become something that is more influential than the things that created the crud that was in her head in the first place, because you were able to scrape it out of your own psyche, and now you're scraping it out of hers. And sometimes it's like she doesn't even know. It's kind of like the other night I was watching the original Karate Kid movie with my son. And I love that shit. Like I really need to get back into martial arts. Just like the Eastern way of going about things, lessons and training and all this stuff. But the whole like wax on, wax off thing, and he's like, I want to learn karate. And he was learning karate the entire time. The entire time that he was busting his ass, he was actually training his body to move in a certain way. Then once the mental explanation met with the physical training, then it clicked. And he was like, "Oh shit." And the light bulb exploded. And that light bulb wouldn't explode if he were to just be given the lesson right off the bat and saying, okay, this is what you do. This is what I expect. This is how you do karate. One, two, three, four. All right, go ahead and do it. There wouldn't have been that explosion of aha. And when you learn how to teach, well, first, when you learn how to teach yourself, All right. Because after liberation, you have to teach. So after you've liberated yourself from the shackles of, parts of your own mind, then you have to teach yourself how to grow beyond that. And that's when you have your own aha moments. And then you're like, holy shit, like I love the game. This shit is fucking amazing. And that's when you can create, like, once you understand the structure and the feeling behind it, that's when you can do those same sort of things with your woman. When you can teach her without teaching her, without laying out the lesson plan, you can then devise your wax on, wax off moments to the point where then after you explain it, it all starts to click and she goes, boom, and says, aha, and then breaks through a plateau and is now in a whole new understanding of things. And you go, you see? And you have them reflect, how do you feel right now? And they may or may not have even words for it because now they're experiencing a whole new level of themselves that they don't have an explanation for. And I'm saying this is where you guys can go, but too easily you're bashing yourself while at the same time just want to fuck. You're not going to get anything. You will not get anything. You will go nowhere. You will do nothing. You will not progress past your infantile state that you're in. Nothing will happen. And maybe you can get good, because there's that old phrase, a fool who persists in his folly will become wise. So if you do the same stupid shit over and over and over, eventually you will see some sort of success at stupid shit. And you'd be like, hey, that guy's pretty good at doing dumb shit. And we know a number of those people. Like they're very good at doing stupid things. So yeah, you could get good at just fucking. But it's like, damn, like that's so short-sighted. But I don't blame guys. Like this is kind of like why I'm talking about this sort of stuff. Instead of like how to's, because it's letting guys know that the map is bigger than what you think it is. It's a whole lot bigger than what you think it is. And that means there's a whole lot more opportunity for understanding, for growth, for knowledge, for wisdom. And then watching watching your influence affect someone in a positive way. And you can like kind of look at that and go, you know what? Yeah, fucking like I had a strong hand in creating that and affecting this person, and they're working through their traumas. They're a lot happier, they're lighter. And with that, they want to pour back into you. They want to pour back into you because they're not afraid because you've removed their fear. You've removed self doubt and replaced it with self belief, confidence, self appreciation, all that good stuff, And it's like, you just want to fuck. Yes. Okay, so I am not him. You said here feels as though I'm in the process of getting to know myself or know self better. Anytime a judgment or criticism of another comes up is primarily a prompt to examine the self. Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything is an opportunity to examine the self and say, why? Why did I just say that? Why did I think that? Why am I doing this? And that only leads to a greater understanding. um, it helps to have a constitution developed, because, um, and I think that's why, religions created their own set of principles, the Quran and, the Ten Commandments and the Buddhist Eightfold Path. And, the Hindus have like a shit ton. And, the Hindus actually have a really, really cool system. And one of my new students brought me to an awareness of this Hindu system. And I'm so surprised that it naturally lines up with what I already teach. So I thought that was pretty cool. But the thing is that, you know, it's having the system is what gives you structure in which to reflect. Um, that's why things like religion are so powerful because it acts as a powerful mirror if you allow it to. There's a lot of idiots out there who just use it as a means to pontificate and browbeat other people. Um, but let's not talk about those people. I'm talking about people who take it really seriously and they take it to heart. Um, it can be a very, very effective tool for self examination. And I do think that that was the original aim of religions is to bring someone greater to a greater proximity to their real self, to their true being. And, and then it kind of just got messed up along the way by people who were clever enough to use it to manipulate people and take advantage of the innate weaknesses of the human condition. But, you know, that's just the way people are. There's a lot of fucked up, cruel people in the world who, want to take advantage of people. So, um, instant classic. Did you learn this level of self mastery through your time as a monk, BDSM, or a mixture of the two? Well, for clarity, I wasn't a monk. I did live in a Shaolin monastery, but I lived monastically, but I wasn't ordained. So I did everything a monk did, but I did not take any vows or anything like that. Um, it's the self mastery. Um, like those things are just really effective catalysts. It's like adding octane booster to your gas tank. That's what, being in a temple was like. That's what BDSM is like. It's they're octane boosters. So I was already inclined towards self-reflection. Having got into studying Buddhism when I was 12 years old. And don't think that like it's never too late to start any of this, but it was just something that interested me. But the those things, they act as catalysts, and people, the more you understand yourself and the more you understand the game, the more you can find game or the way or whatever the fuck you want to call it in practically everything. Like I remember hearing stories about Buddhists who would find enlightenment while washing the dishes because they just did the thing and something clicked and they were like, holy shit, I fucking get it. Aha. They had their own light bulb exploding moment. The Japanese call that satori, which is, instantaneous enlightenment. So the, you know, the things that I do, I mean, you can find, if your mind has shifted in that manner, you can find lessons to who you are in tons of things, movies, books, activities, um, you know, like shit. I remember I used to skateboard a lot. And, that's when I was a period of my time when I was like just doing art and smoking weed and skateboarding, young man, just doing like dumb shit. And there was a good friend of mine who, I mean, this guy was like a massive stoner, massive, massive stoner. And and he would break down skateboarding to me in such a way that it was as if he was talking about Tai Chi and breaking down that, like how it's like connected to the universe and philosophy and life. Like it was like basically like using skateboarding as a catalyst to talk about life philosophy and how that reflects on the user and what it does for them. And it like blew my mind like how deep he took something as simple as riding around on a piece of wood with wheels. And so it's kind of like that. Um Classic. It can be anything. So it's really just your relationship to you and what you're doing can bring about further lessons and further opening of your mind. Um, and and that's really where the gold is. So um all right, so here we are at an hour 20. I'm going to call it. I've appreciated the people who have come for the live, and I appreciate you folks who are watching this on the replay. Um, you know, please leave a comment. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat here. You can email me at the dominance academy at gmail.com, or you can follow me on Instagram, which is the dominance academy _ and you can ask me anything you like: dating, relationships, marriage, sex, BDSM, kink, whatever you want to talk about. It really doesn't matter. Um, I like giving my time to you guys. So, um, with that said, I'm going to bid you adieu. And until next time, take it easy.